India is now going beyond simply acquiring technology, but we are trying to put together an ecosystem where it is conceived, developed, and deployed right here on Indian soil. We are privileged to have been involved with the IDEX program for the last 6 years. And currently, at this point of time, we are working with over 40 startups, and they are cumulatively solving in the IDEX program. These startups are a range of sectors. We have startups in drones, in anti-drones, in radar simulators, in cybersecurity, in control systems, jammers, electro-optics, material science, and so on. So we've long felt the need for bringing together a forum where all the relevant stakeholders, which is policymakers represented by the government, both local and central, the public sector units, the armed forces, corporates, startups, funding entities, academia, industry associations come together along with our partners from overseas under one roof and look at how do we build a truly scalable global ecosystem where not just meeting the needs of India, but also potentially, we all know that our exports in defense have scaled up to 21,000 crores last year, and I think there's an ambitious target of getting that to 1 lakh crores by 2030. We believe the interactions today will spark new collaborations, ignite entrepreneurial journeys, and redefine India's capabilities. I'd like to thank Dr. Sri Giridhar Armane Garu for taking time out from his busy schedule to grace the event. I'd like to thank all the dignitaries who have taken time off. I'd like to thank all the corporate leaders who have been here today, and of course all our startups and innovators. We have a busy schedule ahead of us. We are launching the T-Hub Defense Vertical. We are also privileged to have with us Mr. S.P. Singh from SIDBI. We are launching a T-Hub SIDBI funding program. We are also launching an MOU with Kavach, which is going to be a defense fund by Mount Tech. Also, we have partners from IISR, partnership with DD and R&D Israel, of course, with our very own public sector undertaking, Commander Madhav Rao and his team from BDL. And we are also recognizing several outstanding defense startups. We believe that this will be a very strong motivation for them in the time to come, followed by panel discussion. So I just want to end with a quote by a very famous innovator who said this about 100 years ago. He said, "Coming together is the beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success." So look forward to the deliberations and look forward to this edition, the first edition, being setting the benchmark, becoming a hallmark, and working together cumulatively to make India strong, self-reliant, and truly secure. Thank you.
Next, it is my honor to welcome Shri Jayesh Ranjan, IAS Special Chief Secretary, IT, ENC and IC Department, Government of Telangana, to shed light on Telangana's approach to fostering the aerospace and defense ecosystem,
which are relevant for the stakeholders and armed forces in our country, but can also offer these solutions to the rest of the world. But in like any other startup journey, this sector also requires lots of hand-holding and support. We just had a round table a while ago in which lots of policy kind of opportunities were presented before the Union Secretary, and he was very kind enough to kind of give his in principle nod to look into and examine and ensure that all these policies fructify in days and months to come. But like the policy environment, the handholding is also required from the private sector and the DPSUs. So since there are so many of them who are present in this conference today, I hope that at the end of the day, the key takeaway would be that how do we create strong partnerships through which startups are able to understand the real problem statements that you face, get mentorship from you. Many of you have venture arms, get possibly some early stage funding support also, and most importantly, get guidance and mentorship from your key staff members, key senior leaders to help them develop their solutions with precision and accuracy. So I'm happy that T-Hub is taking this particular vertical in a very organized and focused way. And it is very justified also, since we are in Hyderabad, which is one of the important hubs for this sector, to focus on innovation in defense and aerospace on behalf of T-Hub is more than justified. Myself and people like BVR Mohan Reddy Garu are also on the board of T-Hub. So we will ensure that this vertical remains strong, and tomorrow through IDEX and Aditi and other programs, we are able to support more and more startups also. Once again, I welcome all of you and hope that this dialogue, this conversation, this partnership will be an ongoing one, and there will be a lots to learn and exchange from each other mutually. Thank you very much.
This has been a privilege, just being part of this ecosystem for the last few years. And what I'm here to tell you a little bit about the story. But before I get that, respected sir, Shri Girdhar Armane ji, Shri Jayesh Ranjan ji, and rest of my colleagues here from different industries, startups, and PSUs, I want to tell about that how over the last few years we have looked India very differently, within Collins Aerospace, within the world, how we are seeing that. And what we are seeing very interestingly is that India is becoming largely the global hub for innovation, research in aerospace and defense. And so when we started exploring the last few years, we understood that partnerships with T-Hub, we can really get into the Indian ecosystem, we can understand the true power of startups, and we can see how they can really solve the global problems that are there, plaguing in industry across aerospace and industry, in various forms. So with that, quick introduction. So I represent Collins Aerospace. It's a 100-year-old company, obviously through various mergers and acquisitions. We became Collins in 2018. We've been in India for about 30 years now. We have actually had an engineering site based out of Hyderabad. We recently opened a very big site in Bangalore. And now we're doing even operations in Bangalore as well. And what we've realized that beyond engineering design and manufacturing, there is a lot of interesting research collaboration opportunities. And that's how we started this Powered by Collins initiative. We opened up with T-Hub last year. That was our first year exploring the concept that can we give 4 or 5 global collaboration challenges that we are seeing that daily our customers are asking. And while we're trying to solve those problems, we see there is a need for acceleration, there's a need for quick productization. And we opened that up to the global ecosystem. The best thing was we actually used an Indian startup accelerator to reaching out for the global platform. And we had quite a big success. Last year, we had several incoming proposals. We shortlisted 1 or 2. We had 1 or 2 success stories. And that made us confident for us to come back again a second year and say that let's actually expand this. And in fact, bring those problem statements over here where Indian startups are doing very, very well. So bring in AI problems, bring in data analytics problems, and actually pose that over here. So that's what I'm very happy to share. The Powered by Collins initiative is open right now. And you can go in, you can actually find about it. You can find the 4 big startup collaboration opportunities we are looking at. And all we're really requesting you is through that, give us an introduction of how you think these problems can be solved. And then let's convene with some of the business owners, some of the people who have actually created those challenges and work together. So in closing thoughts, I feel this is just the beginning of what Collins is doing in India today. There is huge potential beyond just the workforce, the 5,000 plus Collins employees who are across Hyderabad and Bangalore. There is a whole ecosystem where we see potential for huge collaborative innovation, huge research, and obviously reaching from here to the world, bringing solutions which are designed, developed, researched in India, but are deployed across the global landscape.
The presence of so many startups, the innovators here, makes the visit to Hyderabad very fruitful one. So far, procurement has been looked at bringing some very costly high technology equipment from abroad for the forces. To allay the fears of the local manufacturers, in 2021 December, our Prime Minister declared that the defense procurement will be primarily from local industry. It has been written down in stone It cannot be violated just like that. So, if you think that defense forces require a particular type of equipment now or in future, you should start innovating, because you stand a very good chance to become a part of their supply chain.
We would now like to express our heartfelt gratitude and take the privilege to felicitate our esteemed guest, Shri Giridhar Armane, IAS Defence Secretary of India, for gracing us with his presence today. He is known for his illustrious career and distinguished service to the nation. Shri Armane has held various pivotal roles in both the central government and state governments, showcasing exceptional leadership and expertise. I humbly request Shri Giridhar Armane to grace us and share his thoughts on the future of Indian defense and aerospace ecosystem.
I am thankful to T-Hub, Jayesh Ranjan, Srinivas Rao Garu, and the Anthony and his team of the dynamic T-Hub team here. Reddy Garu is here, Satish is here, and many important defense sector industry leaders are here. Hyderabad is a beautiful city. It's always a pleasure to be here. And also, the presence of so many startups, the innovators here, makes the visit to Hyderabad very fruitful one. I would like to divide my comments into three parts. Firstly, I would like to tell you about the initiatives taken by government in procurement reforms. Secondly, in the innovative ecosystem reforms. Thirdly, quality reforms. Lastly, I would conclude by expressing what Government of India expects from the innovative ecosystem in the country. Firstly, coming to the procurement reforms. So far, procurement has been looked at bringing some very costly high technology equipment from abroad for the forces. To allay the fears of the local manufacturers, in 2021 December, our Prime Minister declared that the defense procurement will be primarily from local industry. Imports will be an exception. So it has been written down on stone. It cannot be violated just like that. Any exception has to be approved by the defense minister himself, and if it required, it goes to the cabinet. So, if you think that defense forces require a particular type of equipment now or in future, you should start innovating, because you stand a very good chance to become a part of their supply chain. The second important thing which is done is that we have ensured that the procurement process itself is speeded up. It's delegated to various levels. Now, you have seen the emergency procurement recently. More than 100 contracts have been signed in a period of 6 months to 8 months, and many supplies also are taking place. Several of these are purely Indian designed, developed and manufactured. Similarly, we have the Make 1 and Make 2 programs also, where last year 2022-23 we have concluded more than 80 contracts with the local manufacturers. These can be very top order equipment like the tanks and infantry combat vehicles, and it can also be smaller equipment like spare parts, components of the various platforms we are using. Thirdly, in Make programs, that is Indian designed and developed manufacturing in India equipment, we are ensuring that orders are placed soon after the development is completed. In fact, the Make 1 and Make 2 programs are tied with the secure orders. Make 3, which also looks at technology transfer and manufacturing in India, is also tied to the guaranteed orders. So, in terms of ensuring that whoever designs and develops in the country is rewarded adequately. Reforms are already in place to ensure that they get the returns. The next most important reform is that we are requiring each and every critical technology required for these platforms which our forces are procuring are designed and developed in India. Normally what used to happen previously is that there will be several Indian companies manufacturing parts, components, but the company which gets the order for entire platform used to import several of these components from abroad despite having the local alternative. So we ensured that now, as per the new rules, the critical technologies have to be sourced from India. If they are already available, if they are not available, they have to be developed and manufactured in India. This is a major change. Why? Because so far, indigenous technology means it used to be labor component, it used to be the maintenance component, it used to be the documentation, it used to be the training. It never used to be the critical technology. It can be the metal bending, riveting, and those kind of low technology equipment, but it never was high-end avionics or electronic systems, IT systems, etc., which used to be very critical. What happens is that if we buy the IT systems, the software of these platforms from abroad, we are constantly dependent upon the foreign suppliers. The Indian supplier never gets a chance to supply. Those things are a thing of the past now. Now we have mandated that the IDDM means it shall be designed and developed in India. It has to be manufactured in India. Next, I will come to the innovative system reforms. We had IDEX program in 2018-19 that itself was a very great revolution. In fact, it for the first time established a very simple process to ensure that the innovators are given some support, some mentorship, some hand holding, and also a small amount of grant. It used to be 1.5 crores. Later it was increased to 10 crores. Now, recently we have ensured that these innovators, these young people who have started the companies are also assured of the orders. They progress to the orders in a seamless fashion. It is not a very cumbersome process of going through several rounds of quality checks, etc. Because we are asking you to develop a particular technology, we agreed with you what it will perform, and you have developed according to that. The procurement from these companies has been simplified a lot. In fact, one of the officers from the services, Navy, Air Force or Army, will handhold you and ensure that the procurement process is also completed. One more important, very important change has been brought about. That is the spiral development. So far, we prescribe SQR, service quality requirements, at a particular level. It has to fly, if it's a drone, it has to fly up to 10,000 feet. If it flies up to 9,500 feet, we used to say, no, you have not met the SQR, so we cannot procure. Similar restrictions were there in many other requirements. So what we now say is that if you meet say 70% of the requirement, okay, we will place order for so many units. You still have a chance to increase it to the 10,000 feet and come back to us so that we can procure from you the remaining quantity. So the spiral development is going to be of great help to the innovators as they are assured of orders even if they meet not 100% but 70 to 80% of the requirement also. This will ensure that you will not suffer in future. We are also thinking of doing one more thing. Just now, some of the people I interacted with told me that the initial seed capital is okay. You may give 1.5 crore, 10 crore or 25 crores, but the matching grant is causing a serious problem. We want to solve that. We are thinking of tying you with the platform manufacturer. Suppose you manufacture a component and sub-assembly for a larger platform. We would like you to get in touch with the larger company which manufactures the platform and get the necessary funding from them. Apart from that, recently Finance Minister had a very detailed discussion with the Managing Director of SIDBI. She had instructed him to ensure that all the defense startups get the necessary funding at the lowest possible cost. The cost of capital has to be reduced for the startups in the country. So all necessary arrangements will be done for that. And from my side, from the defense ministry side, we will ensure that our companies, I have 16 of them, will ensure that they will come to your support. They will not ask for your equity. Please don't worry. They will extend you in terms of a interest-free loan if you are developing a part, a subsystem, a component which will go into the platform they are manufacturing. I request other industry representatives here. I have representatives of Tata, Mahindra, Boeing, Safran, very large companies are present here. I would also request them to handhold the startups, and they have been doing it. In fact, when Honorable Prime Minister went to US last June, he took along with him a large number of the startup innovators. There, he personally ensured that they get the necessary support from the American industry ecosystem. Just before he reached there, he had asked me to organize an event where Indian startups get an exposure to the American defense industry. So we had organized that IndusX symposium there, where many top US companies had interacted with Indian startups and have given several orders to these companies. So in terms of connect between industry, the established industry, which get most of the large orders, and the startups which provide the critical technologies needed, has been already started, and I hope it will, in times to come, will become very, very strong and be mutually beneficial to the large corporates as well as the startups. Now I come to the third important reform which government has undertaken recently, is the quality reforms. Quality control and quality assurance are very key to defense industry. You understand, one particular batch of ammunition which resulted in poor quality has caused the death of many soldiers a few years ago, 3-4 years ago. So quality control is to be given topmost importance in all the defense related manufacturing processes. So we are generally very careful. We have a very large organization with several thousands of people working for it, which will check the quality of various equipment, arms and ammunition we procure. However, many times it becomes so tedious that the manufacturers get worried that this process will never end and we may end up with no order in next few years. That will cast a shadow on their financials and will result in them getting out of the defense sector. It has happened many times previously also. So to ensure that the processes are very fair, objective and not very time consuming, we have introduced several reforms recently. Firstly, we are providing a single window system for quality control. So far we have been asking the manufacturers to go around several of the laboratories, several of the offices to get each of the systems to be certified. Now we say that if you are manufacturing, say, a battle tank, you can go to only one office and get all the systems certified through that office. He will handhold you. He will take forward the certification process on his own. There will not be multiple visits to multiple offices. The second important thing is the remote and virtual quality control. Now we have huge developments in IT and instrumentation. Many of you are fully aware of it, which will enable us to do the quality control, quality assurance work sitting in a remote area. There is no need to be physically be present. Right now, I have deployed several hundreds of my officers in these companies, manufacturing companies. I would like to get out of these offices. Maybe in a central office, they can sit and watch what is being done in these offices through remotely operated cameras, etc. A part of this is also the automated quality control processes. Many of the machines these days come with the recording of the parameters of the goods being manufactured. They can be read and understood clearly whether the processes are proper or not from a remote location. That also has been enabled now, and many companies are already utilizing this. And lastly, in this series of reforms is the self-certification. If you have reached a certain stage in the manufacturing process, you can certify yourself that this is according to so and so standard, so and so mill standard, we confirm, so we can supply to you. Or third party certification. If there is NABL certified laboratory, they can come and check and give a certificate to you, which will be acceptable in the ministry. Like this, we want to declutter the quality control and quality assurance processes so that your procurement, the manufactured goods, the goods you have manufactured can be procured without any problem. So these are the three types of reforms which government has undertaken. I have listed only important ones. There are several of these things because our procurement process, quality assurance process is very complicated one. We had to change, we have to modify, we have to delete many of these processes. It is much simpler now. It can be much more simpler. I need your advice on that. But I have stated some of the important ones. Now, what do I expect from Defense Ministry side to the startups? We have issued lot of challenges through IDEX recently and through Aditi only last month. I would request all of you to work on them because there are guaranteed orders in them. If I ask for a small component of a battle tank or one of my aircraft fighter jets, I actually need it in large quantity. Please look into these positive indigenization lists which are there in our website. Similarly, the challenges are needed for actual life uses. We need to deploy these equipment as soon as you make them ready. That's why IDEX program in last 2-3 years has resulted in several contracts. I think 34 or 35 contracts have already been signed, and we are in the process of signing many more. More than 300 projects have been awarded for development under IDEX. So I want you to concentrate on the 5 positive indigenization lists issued by the ministry so that I can procure more and more goods from you and also from the Aditi and IDEX challenges. The second one is the care for quality and the user friendliness. I was trying to procure an assault rifle for Indian Army. This assault rifle is like almost like a part of your body for a soldier who is guarding the border. It has to be very, very user friendly. It should not get heated up. It should be very easy to use. It should not malfunction, whether in Ladakh or is in Rajasthan. It has to be so good that the soldier will not feel that it's a burden on him. When I compare what is made by, say, 6R in US and what is made by our own defense PSU in our country, of course, our own equipment is fully indigenous, 100%. But the look, feel, and the quality all have much to improve. So, when you are coming up with a product, look at the design of it carefully, user friendliness of it carefully, and also the quality assurance also very carefully. Without these, we cannot really excel in any sector. Quality of actual functioning and quality of look and feel are also very, very important for getting success in procurement processes. The very look of your equipment should be so appealing. I would like you to work on it. Thirdly, for the capital, I assume that none of you want to part with equity in your companies. Don't get disheartened. We are working on the funding mechanisms. We understand that going through the defense ministry's processes is very tedious. We are in the process of reforming. We have already done a few. More are in the offing. But do approach the funding agencies, the DPSUs without hesitation. We don't want to steal your IPR in the DPSUs. We are willing to fund you without any caveats, without any very difficult conditions. We would like you to succeed. Ultimately, if you succeed, we succeed, and our country's security is really in good hands. So, with this appeal, and again thanking T-Hub, which has come up as one of the best incubators in the country, and maybe it will rival some of the best in the world. Congratulating the team here, congratulating all the innovators here. I take your leave. Jai Hind.
For the signing of MOU and the award ceremony, I would also like to invite Shri Jayesh Ranjan, Shri Mahankali Srinivas Rao, Shri V.V. Mohan Reddy to come upon the stage to join our Chief Minister for the launch and the award ceremony.
I was asked to speak about opportunities for startups in defense innovations. Let me start by giving you one example that although I was part of a large corporate, I started as a startup. I joined that company in 2010. I was the first person to join in the defense group. Today, this year, we should, along with my subsidiaries, do about 1700 crores of business, and 1300 crores out of that is exports outside India. And Defense Secretary did mention about the quality of products. I can assure you, sir, the guns which we have exported are better looking than any other gun in the world, and we believe we have a world beater. So we can assure you on the quality. But my talk today is more towards the people who are sitting in this hall. The recent geostrategic happenings have brought out two lessons. First and the foremost is that in times of war, you cannot depend somebody else to take care of your backside. Which means if you want to be a nation which can hold its own, you need to have a defense ecosystem or industrial base which is not reliant on foreign technology or foreign products. The second thing was that India wants to grow its economy. We are talking already about touching 4 trillion this year. We have a target of touching 5 trillion in next 2 years' time. And we are also wanting that 25% of that growth should be coming from manufacturing. If you take a look at it, today our manufacturing is approximately 16%. If you have to grow to 25%, the manufacturing has to double in 2 to 3 years' time from where we are. And the white spaces available in the manufacturing sector were in the area which was defense and aerospace. So if you are looking at these white spaces to be covered to take care of the manufacturing of the country, defense and aerospace needs a fillip. It's no rocket science that we need to grow our manufacturing in defense and aerospace. Now let me come back to you. How do you grow manufacturing in defense and aerospace? We need to have a ecosystem which is based on a vibrant defense industrial base. And two constituents of that ecosystem, or the so-called industrial base, are technology and the manufacturing competence. In terms of manufacturing competence, this country has already shown that we are capable of doing high technology manufacturing. So what we need to take a look is at the technology ecosystem. Now, technology ecosystem consists of three segments. First is research and development, which generally would remain a state function. You will be carrying out research in certain fundamental categories, and this would generally be going from Tier 1 to Tier 3, 4, nothing beyond. Innovation is a step-by-step improvement in research and development. It is improving upon something which is happening. But the most important is what we call the breakthrough technologies. Now, breakthrough technologies cause disruption. 95% of the breakthrough technologies have come out of garages, which is what it means that they come out of startups. I was reading a very interesting book called The Conflict. It's a wonderful book written which sums up all the conflicts which had taken place from First World War till Ukraine war, which is as recent as last year. And the three lessons which come out of that book is that you cannot predict with confidence where the defense technologies are headed. After the First World War, there was a mention that with the Air Force being available, you all know where we stand. So the book says that there are three things which are going to happen into the future. The first is that technology is going to change at a pace faster than you anticipate. Secondly, the warfare will start engulfing the domains where they haven't gone before. And the third and the most important part was that the technology development will now happen in civilian domain rather than in the military domain. Till 2000 or till 1950s or 90s, most of the leading technologies were developed in the military domain. Not so. Today, the technologies are going to be developed in civilian domain, which will find themselves getting into the military domain. This is exactly what startups can do. They can bring those technologies, they can bring those real breakthrough technologies will change the face of the warfare, which are going to happen and which are going to be done by the startups. Let me also link this with what happened in the warfare. We are at the cusp of what we call RMA 3.0. There was first came revolution in military affairs 1.0. India was nowhere on the scene. We were not even ready. 2.0 was all about command and control, communication, software defined stuff, and we kept playing catch up. We did have the inherent capability in the country, but we were never being able to catch up. Till today, major weapon platforms which came into the country, which were imported, had generally the fire control systems and softwares written outside the country. Of course, things have changed drastically in last 10 years, but this was the situation. Now we are at the cusp of what we call RMA 3.0. And this is the place where we need to be the lead player in the world. And that leadership can only come about when you have something what the startups bring to the front. Just to give you an example, today, roughly, give and take, I think Virmani will probably confirm that, we have about 864 startups in defense space in the country. I was mentioned in T-Hub, you have 70 of them. How did this fire ignite? Till about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, we hardly had few startups in defense. IDEX program started and startups started to see light at the end of the tunnel. And suddenly you found they grew exponentially in this market. Today, 864, maybe 1,000. And when we are talking about, and Defense Secretary was mentioning about Aditi, where you will have 25 crores funding. We were talking about IDEX Prime, where there's 10 crore funding. All these are way forwards to ignite that fire. What we really want to do is, there should not be 10, 20, 30, there should be thousands of startups. India should be the next startup nation. We are already third in the global list. Last year we had 8,000 startups. But United States has 30,000. So we really need to go there to become the startup nation. And that startup nation will happen when you see more and more initiatives like T-Hub. I think the only thing which is holding back Indian innovation and startup revolution is perhaps the capital. I think it was already mentioned, we did sign one, I think one MOU has been signed. Moment these things are put into place, I think, tell you, sky's the limit. Each one of you would have seen either on the 30th January or on last Defense Expo or even recently a swarm drone display being done. If I'm not mistaken, it was being done by an Indian startup. The total cost of that swarm drone was less than 65 lakh rupees, including the drones. We as Indians have that capability of frugal engineering and frugal development. My last point, just to give you that confidence, today we have 450,000 engineers working as centers of excellence for R&D for foreign MNCs. And just the last year's data says that in last 5 years, foreign OEMs have saved $80 billion in research and development costs by having their centers in India. Cost of development in India still is around $40 per hour for a very fine research and development engineer. Compare that to almost 160 euros to $200 in United States of America. So we are blessed in this country with the capability to take us to the next level. All we need is little more light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm sure this will be provided shortly. With these words, I wish each one of you great times, smooth sailing, and fantastic developments going into the future. Thank you so much.
India, an emerging defense and aerospace innovation hub. This pivotal discussion will delve into the intricacies of India's emergence as a hub for innovation in the defense and aerospace sector, shedding light on the opportunities and challenges that lie ahead. I'm glad to share that we have leaders from the Indian Air Force, DRDO, VC ecosystem, and entrepreneurs. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our esteemed panelists, each bringing a wealth of knowledge and expertise to this discourse. As our panelists, we have Air Marshal AVSM VM, Indian Air Force, Shri Srikumar Prabhakaran, retired, Shri G. Satish Reddy, Chairman of the Governing Body of Aeronautical Development Agency, Mr. Lakshminath V., Managing Partner, Pavestone VC, Mr. Sanjay Nikanti, Founder and CEO of Dhruva Space Private Limited. As a moderator, we have Wing Commander Anish Anthony, retired, the Chief Operating Officer of T-Hub.
The first theme will be the optimizing the utilization of startup as a driver of innovation, defense and the aerospace sector. So my first question will probably go to you, sir. I think, like he said, there are almost 850 plus startups in the defense and aerospace innovation ecosystem today. How can the Indian government and established defense firms, they can help startups to integrate better into the defense innovation ecosystem? What do you think that the startups need to do from their side? And what do you think that the ecosystem, senior players in the ecosystem like the DPSUs or the corporates need to do to help them integrate better?
Point what you asked me. Firstly, looking at the the innovations in the country, the startups in the country, there is a huge quantum jump in the number of systems which have come up. As you know, in 2016, there were about 460 or so startups. Now there are about 1,14,000 startups which have come up in the country and going on every day. And defense was normally kept away for all the even startups and in the industries also. That now, that gap has been filled. Industry are also working a lot for the defense and a lot of startups have also started coming in. A lot of schemes government has brought in, like Defense Secretary has mentioned some time back, the IDEX or the TDF or Make 1, Make 2, IDDM and all those things have come up. But still, as far as the startups are concerned, I feel there are many things which need to be addressed and which many things need to be simplified. Firstly, the funding. In India, I still consider, in India, early stage startups or deep tech startups, funding is a question mark from India. As most of them are somehow managing with the funding from outside, and here getting it is little difficult. Second, when we look at even IDEX or anything, the funding is primarily for a product or a technological product, whichever way it is you say, as an end product or a technological product, not as such for a technology, which actually is supposed to have been from TDF. Somehow the TDF, I think last couple of years has not taken very well in the last couple of years. So that's another thing. So when you look at that type of a funding, the IDEX 10 crores, even though it has been increased from 1 crores to 10 crores, that is not sufficient. The TDF funding has been increased from 10 crores to 50 crores, that's a good thing. So that needs to be supported. Probably the other schemes like NRF or the quantum mission, which are about 50,000 crores and 6,500 crores which are coming up, these missions should be able to support the deep tech startups getting into technology. What I am saying is, the startups here, if they have to beat the world market, and not just the Indian people, the product really has to be a technologically advanced or first of its kind product. Then you need to spend a lot, both funding-wise and otherwise, a lot into the deep technology. This is one of the issues what we face. Second, whatever Defense Secretary said, they are all at the system level and product level what services the armed forces require. Many of the things which startups produce are not the end product what goes to services. Let's say you have a product, a subsystem or a product which goes into a tank or which goes into a fighter aircraft. The services won't come into picture unless he is responsible for the MRO of that and all that. It is some other agency which comes into picture, which has established supply chain. You have to break that chain and see that this product gets into it. There is a pain involved into it. That pain, this agency, whichever is responsible, should be able to take the pain. This is a second issue, because many of the startups, they don't bring an aircraft, they don't build a tank. So they build a product which is a technology-based product which needs to get into it. You have, let's say, an IR camera you have. If he makes a bolometer-based camera today, how does it get into the system? Who takes the decision? How does it get into all the processes? And the man who is already responsible for it, how does he take a risk in the government side also? This risk-taking are a aggressive approach to have the new products or indigenous products or the startups based innovations, we need to get into it. This is the second issue what it is. And thirdly, even the products which are getting into the services, one thing is it takes about 2 to 3 years time process today. And unless a product is normally in defense, the norm is if a product is not inducted into the services of the respective country, the other country won't buy. General norm it is. So how does this get into quickly? Whether this process can be hastened? If not, can the startup sustain this period of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years for the product to get into it. Development cycle, the acquisition process, the induction process, the trials, quality, whatever it is. This is another issue what the startups need to. One more issue I think I feel is, particularly in the defense, the connectivity for the startups is also a big question mark. Whom to approach for what, whatever an idea I have. That's number one. Second thing is a suo moto proposal or an ab initio idea. How does it get into it? IDEX gives you challenges, you have to get into that challenges only. No, he has got a completely different thing and nothing connected to the verticals which are proposed by anyone. Need to propose that and I want to come into that, and how do I maintain that? How do I get into this system? Second, if I come out with an innovation, an innovative idea, and if you make it public, if I approach you, you are in the government, if you make it public, it is no more an innovation of the particular individual startup. Yeah. You put it in limited and are open to take the idea and put it into,
First mover advantage.
absolutely lost. So these, I can narrate many of the issues. I thought these are some of the issues what startups have, which you need to see. I don't think I should much comment on what startups should do, because they are just coming up. We need to encourage them. We need to understand them. Otherwise, the ecosystem won't come in the country. So maximum needs to be done by the bigger industries or DPSUs or the government needs to address the issues what I have mentioned.
Air Marshal Prabhakaran sir, I think you've served for more than 40 years in the Indian Air Force, right? At multiple levels, at an operator level, at a decision maker level, finally as an Air Marshal in the Southern Air Command, right? You've flown fighters, you commanded units. From a user perspective, right, there will always be an apprehension when adopting newer technologies. And more so, I think if you put from the lens of a pessimist, right, you will typically we prepare for the worst. When in flying, we prepare for all of these emergencies who are inherently preparing for the worst case scenario where you can handle them effectively. So if I put that same lens onto startups and say, hey, am I getting a system which is not as well proven, which is not having as much of a production line capacity, which the gestation period has not been as much as other. So how do you think that from the user perspective, from the armed forces perspective, you can open up to be enabled to accommodate for more startup related technologies to be adopted into the armed forces?
What I mean is that it gives an opportunity for the young innovators to get in touch with the end users. I can tell you my experience in the Air Force is because we always have to go through the ministry, through the DRDO. Ultimately, the user never really comes face to face with the actual innovator. So I was very glad to hear the Defense Secretary mention today that the ministry is changing its rules, making things much simpler. Even though, I mean, a lot of improvements have been done in the last 10 years, but still we have some way to go. But despite that, he mentioned that any of the innovator who has been selected, and today I could see some bright guys coming up and picking up prizes, that the Air Force, let's say it was an Air Force issue, or the Army or the Navy, they would handhold them to take them right till the end of the tunnel. So that is one thing which can happen when you have more such interactions right from the user up to the guy who actually makes the product.
So what would be your advice to startups? How can they reach out to help these navigate these barriers more effectively?
See, now, like once again, what the Defense Secretary mentioned in the website, all the various, and I think there are more than 2,000 or 3,000 items which have been listed out. So they could go on to that. They could see where it is that their, which niche, this thing they can work on, and thereafter they come and through T-Hub, through the ministry, once we get, because the Air Force directly cannot deal with the innovators. That's the problem, you see. But once they have been seen, like, for example, I would really love if the few guys, the few company, startups who were called on stage today, if through you all, they could be made to go to Air Headquarters, to the Directorate of Project, who's in charge of all new thing, and give their ideas. Maybe something will click. Not all, I don't say all, but something could. So I think these are the ways and means of moving things ahead, because like I think it was often brought out, India is the third or the fourth largest, as far as defense equipment buying is concerned. Why should all that go abroad when we have all the brilliant minds, as Sri Bhatia mentioned, 450,000 Indian engineers working for companies abroad. So all this we need to harness so that we become, self-sufficient and not depend too much on others. In fact, I would like to bring this point. When he spoke about this dependence on others during war, I think Sri Bhatia mentioned during war, it becomes critical. I'd like to tell the audience, in the 1982 Falklands War, when Argentina against Britain, Argentina had just bought Super Etendard aircraft, right? And their pilots were just about undergoing training. They were halfway through their training, and they just got, I think, 6 Sea Eagle missiles when France put a stop to their training and a stop to any more knowledge passed on to them. So these 6 pilots who had been trained, between themselves, they quickly trained, they learned how to use that missile, and they knew they had only 6 of these missiles. And they managed to use it to sink 2 or 3 of you would be aware of that. So that's the kind of, hold which a foreign country can have on you when you're in trouble. So it is so important to be as self-sufficient as possible.
You got around 35 years of experience, right? Global business strategy, innovation, M&As. You now run Pavestone, which is probably one of the largest funds in India as a managing partner at Pavestone. One of the biggest challenges for defense startups in particular is the ticket size of that entire development cycle that they go through, right? I mean, it is not as easy or as easy to access to capital when it comes to getting that size of capital. Even from the investor's perspective also, the gestation period is too long for that, right? So how do you think that the startups could be able to navigate these challenges that they encounter in the defense and aerospace sector?
So I run a $100 million fund. We focus on 2 areas. One is what we call B2B, and one is what we call as frontier technology. And I'll kind of tell you how that kind of fits in. And we probably were one of the first funds to support a defense startup. Probably 2.5 years back, the company is New Space Research, one of India's, the first Indian company to launch swarming drone technology, one of the most heavily funded companies at this point in time. So can talk a little bit about the journey, but I'll try to give you the gist of it. I think there are 2-3 things that we need to keep in mind. As a VC, obviously, we have a fund, we have raised money from investors, so we owe a return to the investors. And there's a certain time frame that we operate in. So there's obviously a pressure on returning money, capital back, and there's a return pressure. So that's something you need to always keep in mind at the back of when you're trying to make a decision, okay? Second thing is, when we look at this space, standard issues apply. One is, if I'm funding something in a B2C space, I know that there are, 500 million Indians, and I can see a large market, and I can do the multiples, right?
Yeah.
Here, the usual questions are, we have a single client risk. When the person is selling, there's just one large client he is to sell to. What happens if, if there's a change in something, we don't know what it is, right? And then what's the impact? So that's something that we'll obviously have to consider. And people then, kind of pivot with, I have something for dual use kind of technology. I can do both commercial and defense and exports. That's one of the mitigation strategies. Second thing is number of institutional investors, especially outside of India, do not invest in defense. So if your fund is focused on defense totally, then they would not, invest in you. So
like a dual use startup, you have a dual use fund as well.
Yeah,
right?
no, in the sense it's very difficult for you to raise large amounts of money because, they have the restrictions, rightly, wrongly, that's very difficult for us to raise that. So very important to manage the LPs in your fund. So that's the second constraint that we have. Okay. So in order to address that, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the other positives that is, order to address that, we kind of look at it as it's not just about startups. How do you make the startup a grown-up? Okay, that's the most important part, right?
Yeah.
Startup is nice. No, you get the fund, you get grants, you get to a certain level. The beauty of the game is how do you make it a large company, an institution, okay? So in order to do that, what we've been trying to do is we are looking at them through our, what we call a frontier technology lens. We have a certain portion of our budget allocated for that. And if they do well, then we look at them through the B2B lens, okay? That is, Satish Reddy sir mentioned that it is about, say, if you have to sell to you have to sell a platform, you're one part of it. Your product alone doesn't sell, okay? It is, how does it fit in? How does it work in many things? What's the cost of replacement? What's the cost of integration testing? Your product may cost 1 rupee. To test it, it may cost $1 million rupees. Okay?
Yeah.
So you should look at it through that lens. It's extremely important. And anybody who's been in large corporations and sold large systems like core banking know the importance of it. So understanding B2B mindset is extremely important. So we look at startups through a frontier technology lens, and if they do well, then we are open to consider it as a B2B. And we have 2 buckets for it, okay?
Sure.
Secondly, we also have our strong LP network. Today, we talk to a lot of LPs, and a lot of family offices are very interested in funding. So the fund may put a certain amount, but along with the LPs, you can actually put in a larger amount, okay? So that's the way we try to mitigate it. So fund is, when you look at your, let's say you're a startup and you're looking at a VC, early stage, early growth is great, but if they don't have a B2B strategy, you may not get supported long term unless they have a very strong LP network. That's the way I kind of think about it. Coming to the startups, I think fantastic energy, passion there. I think my only submission is when I look at it from a platform lens, okay? And the kind of skills that you need for this space is extremely different from, you need, it's a mission critical system. So the way you build it, you deploy it is extremely different. So that mindset is extremely important. So that's what I would like to say, and happy to take any more questions.
Sanjay, I think, navigated this space quite well over the last few years, right? I think you've recently raised a round also. I think would love to hear about that as well. But what would be your advice to 2 parts, right? One is to startups who want to build out in the space sector, and second is to organizations like T-Hub who want to help out to build out a vertical for the space sector startups.
Started my company in 2012, straight out of college, talking to prospective customers. And my prospective customers were largely academic institutions who were trying to build space missions. When I also tried to talk to users, being the Triforces or talking to ISRO, DRDO, it was practically very difficult to sell because nobody was willing to believe that a 24-year-old can actually start like a space tech company in the country.
But why space tech? Why space tech, space engineering?
Sure. So So after the success of Chandrayaan-1, there was a scientist from ISRO who had visited our university. I was studying at SRM University in Chennai, and he said that we as students could actually build a satellite. I was part of a very large audience, and I was definitely very excited about the idea, but I wasn't really sure if something like that was possible. And then our university decided to fund that program, and we ended up building this whole satellite. And during the process of building the satellite, I realized that, we're a country with 1 billion people, but, we've sent missions to moon. We were talking about other, really great missions. We have a fantastic defense program, but there's not a single private company in the country that was building full satellites and, serving global markets. So for me, that was like the trigger point that, as a 19-year-old, if I'm able to build out a satellite, why is it that, you can't build a business in the country? And that kind of motivated me to take this journey. However, first things first, it becomes when you're a startup, when you're trying to build out a business, the question, where do you get the money? Who is your customer, right? And for customer or business, you need a product, right? So where do you start, right? So initially when we started off, we were talking about building a satellite, trying to raise capital. And then investors would be like, okay, but who is your customer? And I'm like, okay, I don't have a customer. And that's when I truly believe that the policy changes within the country opened up the opportunity for us, where, the Startup India program saying, giving a level playing opportunity for a startup to also work with a large company allowed us to look at problem statements laid down by the users or R&D institutions. For example, our first large customer was DRDO, where we had actually bid for building, rather indigenizing one of the most critical components that is used on satellites, which is the satellite solar arrays. We built a small solar panel, a 10 centimeter by 10 centimeter one used for satellites. But when we went to DRDO and said, hey, we can actually build out like a 1 meter by 1.2 meter panel, it was not easy, right? Because ISRO was doing it for many, many years. And it's a very complex problem to solve. That we were able to solve by piecing multiple things together. Like we worked with the PSUs in the country, we worked with BHEL, we worked with L&T, which is a larger entity. We did the design. We leveraged the ecosystem to solve that problem. So once that problem was solved, we had investors to believe that, okay, hey, you know what, you have a customer, you're serving that need, and now the question becomes, are you good enough for a VC play or not, right? So when I started looking at capital, now that I have a product, now that I have a customer, the question became like, who would back this business? And the problem when we were trying to raise capital in 2017, 2018 timeframe was precisely that, VC funds were largely looking at non-defense programs. And when you say that your customer is going to be a defense customer, VCs would be like, okay, probably not our bet. So what we did, how we were able to solve that problem is we had angel investors who came on board. So I had to talk to about 160 investors before finding our first play. Then the playbook became little more streamlined because the policy worked, the customer side of things worked. In terms of scaling up, just like what Sir mentioned, I think as a defense or a space company, if your strategy is you're only building a space or a defense company, it's very hard. So we are largely looking at a dual use case where the applications that we are building for space and defense will also have a commercial application. If we are building a remote sensing satellite, I can sell the remote sensing satellite data to many other people.
Primary forte has been communications. One of the, I still feel that you should have focus on that, which have both dual use purpose, and I think the world is moving to that, and try to do more and more focus in that. Probably somewhere we should work with the government and definitely get a bigger project, whatever, 108 satellites or whatever it is, that scheme. I think somehow I feel that you should focus more on that.
Sure, sir. Thank you very much for the advice. So one of our biggest challenges were, especially to focus on one specific application, was that how do you address a rapidly changing market environment? So we wanted to build a foundation that will enable us to serve a variety of applications in any changing market environment. So instead of focusing on communication specifically, what we decided was that we will play a platform play, where if a customer wants a imaging satellite, the platform can be utilized for imaging application. If the customer wants it for weather, etc., again it can be customized for that application.
Hyderabad Telangana per se is has a lot of strengths when it comes to defense and aerospace manufacturing. You look at aviation academies, you look at the number of high precision engineering companies or SMEs that are there available in Hyderabad, right? a lot of corporates have already started moving in. Tassel Lelo, GMR Lelo, Boeing, all of Airbus, all of them have started moving in here. What are the kind of opportunities that you think that will unlock for startups, not only in the engineering, precision engineering space, but beyond that, do you think Hyderabad can become a defense startup hub for the rest of India, a defense startup capital for the rest of India?
See, yeah, one thing like Mr. Jayesh Ranjan was mentioning, Hyderabad has been a prime city or center for defense, primarily, and also aerospace. If you look at all the DRDO laboratories which have come here, have come in somewhere 1958 or 1960, and I'm sure majority of the laboratories are here, and actually they're mostly divided between Bangalore and Hyderabad, and majority of the funding goes to these laboratories because they are more of strategic in nature and working more in aero, missiles and electronic warfare and all that. Then if you look at the PSUs, again you have everything here. You have the complete HL unit, you have the Bharat Electronics working on electronic warfare, and BDL, which has got 2 units here, and then over and above that you have related materials, related NFC and NFTC, and then you have ECIL, which are there. And I almost think that the number of industries which have been supporting, which have been in the part of the supply chain here, have been about more than 1,000 industries which have been there in that. One example which not today, almost about 4 or 5 years back, example I try to give. One of the missiles which got into armed forces maximum in number, value wise, is Akash missile, more than about 25 to 30,000 crores worth. BDL is the integrator, or BDL is the production agency, whatever you call it. And almost about 86 to 87% by value of the Akash missile has been coming from the MSMEs and mostly from Hyderabad. 86, 87%. So VDL actually primarily has been concentrating only on the integration, and they went to the extent of supplying 60 missiles a month. And then one day I remember CMD BDL was promising that I can go even to 120 missiles a month. So that's out of the support what has come in. Now the things are changing. The warfare, actually technologies what are used in the war are changing a lot. Never we thought that drones will play so much of a role, and weapons, the lasers, the electromagnetics, electromagnetic pulse, and related so many systems started coming into it, which actually the startups have taken the footing. Like example you take in Hyderabad, the quantum technology. At least there are 2 companies which have come here who are working on quantum memories and quantum communication related things and all that. You see the drones and anti-drones systems, at least I think 2 companies have seen. One is that Big Bang Boom, and one more company from Hyderabad who have come up with small anti-drone systems which are required today, which actually is continuously changing today. See, today if you talk about a anti-drone technology, talking about a one-to-one system or a laser system or a jamming thing doesn't work today anymore after 1 or 2 years. You need to have technologies which are coming up in a big way, like swarm technologies, and there are 500 drones coming. How do you handle them? What type of technologies you require? This is where requirement. So the necessary background and base exists in Hyderabad out of so many academic institutions here, and that too particularly today, over and above that academic institutions, which are probably 300 academic institutions in around Hyderabad. Then IIT which has come in, triple IT, and even in ISB, a lot of innovations which are coming out. So lots of innovations are coming up. If you look at last 3 months, I myself, at least I have visited and gone to almost about 50 startups and seeing working for aerospace and defense. And so people are coming up. It's only the right guidance, what type of a right novel thinking, an idea which is not existing sort of an one, where you come out and you are able to design and get funds for that and provide is what is required. So I definitely perceive, very strongly perceive, for defense, Hyderabad as the strong base for innovations to come up. And aerospace also definitely, out of many things which are coming up in the aerospace sector, with ISRO also having its presence, and various other aviation sectors, like you said, TSL and many other companies which are coming. Actually, we were talking to Mr. Mohan Reddy also, the way their companies, many people who have become part of supply chain to the entire world. So you need to have all those components or subsystems and products which are there to come out with innovative, the technologies which are coming up and supply is one thing. And particularly with you, T-Hub and T-Works coming up, I think it has given the necessary boost into this city or into the state or surrounding places where a lot of people are jumping into it. And the only thing is, we have to see that those people who have jumped into it, at least down the line, 5 years, they should start tasting the success. Otherwise, the next batch, should not be held because these people didn't get the success. And that is where we all have to see that the state government and central government agencies which are present here, organizations present here, make the startups which have already jumped into it come up successfully. Whatever time period, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, that should happen. I think that kicks off the Hyderabad, which has got the necessary ecosystem, support system, all infrastructure existing in the industry base, which is existing, you should be able to take on.
If you look at the 2025 capital outlay for the capital expenditure for the Ministry of Defense, almost $20 billion has been set aside for capital expenditure, right? Now you overlay that with the policy of having to procure locally as a norm, and then go internationally in case of an exception of something that is not available here. Recently, I think the list 5 has come out for protective goods, which you have to prepare only in India, right? When you overlay all of these things together, the defense sector now suddenly starts becoming a lot of opportunities start getting created for in-house homegrown countries. So do you see LPs, investors, funds looking at that opportunity positively? Do you see an inflow of funds, or maybe at a certain point of time, near future, medium future, defense-focused funds getting created?
Absolutely, I see that. My simple analogy on that is, see, end of the day when you're eating, right, dal roti makes the major portion of your meal, okay?
Yeah.
The innovation and all is nice, it's very, sexy, etc. But lot of basic stuff that you consume is most important. And when you talk of something like that, fundamentals are extremely important. So I strongly see that happening, and I see that there will be essentially 3 plays in that. One is there will be companies, there will be VCs which will fund that kind of enterprises at a B2B kind of level. Secondly, you will see PEs come in who will integrate some of these things and provide a longer solution. See, this is more a PE play than a VC play, because this becomes a margin play rather than a revenue play, right?
Yeah.
The moment it's a margin play, you will see a lot more PE companies come in. And you will also see larger companies, look at this space and kind of do acquisition. So I see these 3 things, okay? I just wanted to point out one thing on what Satish Reddy sir said on ecosystem. I think absolutely, in the sense, ecosystem is the end of the day, it's not buildings, it's culture, okay? And culture is all about conversations, okay? Just to give, and it's going to take time. I was part of the management team which set up India's first multinational software company in '86, okay, Intergraph. And today, it's the GC system is one of the largest, okay. Why? Because there's a brand built. So the way I look at it is, 50 years back, if you talk to India, people associated you with Mahatma Gandhi,
Yeah.
okay. 30 years back, Mahatma Gandhi and yoga. Okay, now it's Mahatma Gandhi, yoga and IT. Okay, and space, right? I see that brand is an extremely important component. And I see that events like this, the conversations are very important. See, 30 years back, when you went to a coffee shop here, people will talk about, only 2 things. Where do I buy the next land? When do I go abroad? When do I get my green card, right? Those would be the conversations. But today, the conversations today are very different. What am I building? How do I make a difference? So that's extremely powerful, okay? And I see that as a big game changer. So.
Yes, please.
One of the things which came up, especially for the young innovators or startups, is that if you only look at the defense market, that means if it's only, let's say, the Air Force or the Army or the Navy, then you may be looking at a very small market. So one of the things which I think present day Indians, when they start something, is they have to look global, which means, I think it was brought out by one of the speakers, that you have to look at standards not just for the Indian Defense Forces, but something which in due course you can export. So it has to be that kind of a standard which you aim for right from the beginning.
Satish sir, you had a comment.
This particular point, people are looking at it. See, I keep saying in my talks, with the startup ecosystem coming up in the country, the mindset of the country has changed. The mindset of the country, whoever wanted to start industries earlier, used to be an ancillary mindset. Can I supply to DRDL? Can I supply to HMT? Can I supply to BHL? And what product you want and all. Now the mindset, whoever is working, I've seen lots of products. The product, actually, they are looking at a globally marketable product. Example, I'll give you just a medical device, somebody I was saying. You touch that with your thumb, then it gives you the blood sugar, BP, heart rate, and ECG, and whatnot, oxygen levels and everything. Nowhere exists in the world. The type of quality, the product, and each and every details, the startup has gone into it. Right from anodization, how to make the box, the unit, the
form factor,
much better than many of the most modern mobiles.
Mobile handsets,
Is much better the quality is. Only thing is, the problem is, as I said, the marketing capability, the initial funding, and the right connects into the world or in the country. These are the issues what we need to look at for the startups, and that happens, I think people are geared up. And it is the country, the type of momentum what it has got, if we are actually not sustain that momentum, it is very difficult for this country to get back again.
So are investors now starting to, the ISRO or the governmental space program has made a niche for itself across the world. I mean, it is very well renowned, recognized and all of that, right? In the private sector, do you see investors looking at Indian space sector as an opportunity to carve out a fund there, to be able to set aside fund, like they've set aside, PFSO set aside for defense, for example, right? And then maybe move on to a B2B play. Do you think people are starting to carve out those in their portfolios, carve out those funds to be able to deploy into the space sector?
Definitely see a lot of interest from investors looking at the space and defense sector increase over the last 12 to 18 months. However, it's also, you know, what kind of investors are looking is also very important.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of capital has been raised in the Western markets to, you know, meet certain goals. And but if you look at their capability on delivering results, some of them who've done SPAC deals and went public, they're not performing the way they were supposed to do. So there is also a possibility that some of these companies would like to deploy cash into India to look at you know, tapping into the market opportunity as well as the manufacturing opportunity. In addition to that, I think also from an entrepreneur's perspective, I think the regulatory framework or the government frameworks have been extremely supportive. You know, when we were trying to raise capital, we were also looking at debt options. And, you know, in this particular round, we found participation of SIDBI as well as the Technology Development Board. And that is like a very welcome move, because this was not something that we were anticipating, or that system existed like, you know, 24 months ago. And in fact, this framework is evolving very fast. We are talking to numerous bankers, and bankers are also looking at the possibilities where if you have a government contract, how you know, it can be supported. So I think the future looks definitely bright if entrepreneurs are looking at the space and defense sector. The caveat being, please do not look at space and defense where government and military will be your only customer. It is extremely important to look at enterprise opportunities within India and also outside of India. As long as that framework is stitched out well, I think, you know, businesses will thrive.
thank you very much to all the panelists. I think we've had a great discussion here. I personally have learnt a lot. Thank you very much for participating in the panel.
I am glad to invite the man who has built open innovation systems at the largest corporates in India as a leader. Now, he is enabling innovation for corporates, government, and international players. Mr. Sujit Jagedar, Chief Innovation Officer of T-Hub.
Definitely, I don't want to stay between all of you and dinner that's waiting for you. What an evening it has been with some of the brightest minds right under one roof and sharing their knowledge, understanding some of the concerns and information about policies. So a lot of information absorption, I'm sure that has happened to each one of us. But then as we conclude the dais, I think one thing is coming out very clear. There are fantastic opportunities for us to collaborate, whichever sector you belong to, you're a startup, you're a corporate, or of course even government as well, to come forward and shake hands. I think as we conclude this, I would definitely like to thank Sri Giridhar Aramane, obviously Defense Secretary, for not only sparing valuable time, but also the fact that he patiently heard us. I mean, we had a round table taking notes about the concerns that some of the corporates and startups expressed, but also shared on the dais all the policies that the central government is taking to actually address those specific areas. But I think there is a phenomenal opportunity. Thank you very much, sir. Of course, Sri Jayesh Ranjan Garu, who is a pillar of support for us, the Principal Secretary of Industries and Commerce, Government of Telangana. Thank you very much, sir, for being here. Sri B.V.R. Mohan Reddy Garu, as always, first of all, is a founder, chairman for Scient, one of the largest R&D companies in India, a pride of Hyderabad, and also a founding member of T-Hub. You have been a pillar of support, sir. Thank you very much. So, of course, Sri Rajendra Singh Bhatia, thank you very much for your invaluable insights. I think we have taken our notes. I'm sure we'll work through that. Thank you very much. And Dr. G. Satish Reddy, President of Aeronautical Society of India, former Chairman, DRDO. Thank you very much, sir. I think he's an icon by any measure, so we are very proud that he managed to spare some time here with us. And of course, Amit Chatterjee, we definitely don't want to forget, from Collins, for being the support and the chief sponsor for the event. While all of these, I'm sure there are other dignitaries who have traveled, come over. Thank you very much for all of that. But specifically calling out the CXOs who have come in, spared their time, valuable time, in spite of a busy schedule, to share their thoughts with us. And the eminent panelists, a very interesting conversation. Thank you very much to the entire panel. There has been a Defense Advisory Committee that has been formed. I'm sure you would have noticed. We thank that team as well for the various contributions that they keep making to our startup ecosystem. Finally, the funding partners, SIDBI, Kavach, thank you very much for traveling and being part of this journey. Of course, the MOUs that we have signed with the various entities. Thank you, Colonel Gill, for traveling all the way from Delhi. You've been a great support from DDR&D. So is the case with the BDL, Commodore Madhav Rao, who had been here, and of course the IISSR team as well. Finally, congratulations to all the startups that were the trailblazers. I'm sure there are more things to come in the startup ecosystem as well. But last but not the least, our own team, the T-Hub team that has been instrumental in putting all of this together. I should name a few: Ayush, Srinivas, Drona, Ondrela, of course, who has managed the show here, Glossy, and various facilities management team, who are behind the scene as always, and startup innovation team as well. But last but not the least, Anish, Anthony, and MSR, thank you very much for being wonderful pillars of support to make this a successful event. Thank you, and hope you have a nice dinner and drinks as well, I presume. Thank you very much.
To stay informed about the startup ecosystem, subscribe to My Startup TV.